This is the 5th installment of Legio Enigmatum. If you're enjoying the story so far, please drop a like and a subscribe. I'm also really keen to engage with the audience, so if you have any feedback or you'd like to say where you think the story's going to go, please drop it in a comment. Legio Enigmatum, Part 5. The shrubs had withered. What had once been thick green underbrush now lay curled and brittle, blackened as if by flame, though there had been no fire. The scent was wrong too, not smoke, but rusted iron and soured meat. The boy, Lamaki, led the warriors in silence, clinging to Abian's side. The hunter said nothing, only nodding to the glade where the corpse still lay. His spear was held over his shoulder, but his eyes were sharp and watchful. 4 figures stepped into the clearing. 2 bore the golden armor of the celestial lions. One was Brother Senka. He was a spirit walker, the name the lions used for their librarius. His psychic hood thrummed with restrained energy. After him came the voice of the pride. The others wore the obsidian black armor of the Matadors' patient. Decius Thorn was accompanied by a librarian as well, who the Matadors called the Voidira. His name was Brother Alzar Twain. Twain wore a cloak above his armor, of ink black, marked with burning runes that shimmered faintly in the sickening light of the clearing. Senka was wary of the 2 black Astartes, and particularly the Voidira. He exuded a power the Spirit Walker could sense, similar to the Spirit Walker, but distinctly different. "I do not like the Voidira," said Senka, pulling Kozha aside. "In truth, I do not like either of these 2 Astartes." "And why is that, Spirit Walker?" Kozha asked, keeping their conversation to a closed channel. "I don't know, but I sense something different. Looking at them is like looking at a familiar river and noticing it is flowing in the wrong direction. Decius has been my inquiry since the Matadors arrived. He is a loyal servant of the Emperor," said Kozha. "Now come. Observe, the hunter is wary of them too," said the Spirit Walker. "Would you not be, to have 2 9-foot-tall strangers in black armor enter your village?" said Kozha. The Space Marine circled the corpse in grim silence. The Elder's face was still locked in a final snarl, blood dried in deep grooves around his chin and chest. Around his neck hung the shard, still wrapped in coarse vine. Its surface drank the light. Senka moved first, crushing the twisted, blackened undergrowth beneath his immense metal boots. He knelt beside the Elder's corpse, examining the twisted figure with the detached poise of a scholar amid ruin. The object around the man's neck seemed to pulse faintly. "This is the source," Senka murmured. His armoured fingers reached out, carefully unwinding the makeshift cord and lifting the shard free. Senka's psychic hood flickered as he extended his mind. For a moment, there was nothing. Then cold. Not just cold, a vacuum, a hollow void into which his consciousness scraped like fingers on glass. Screams brushed the edge of his hearing. 1,000 mouths, no language. Senka recoiled. "Screams," he said, voice taut. Many screams in unison, conducted by a single man's cruelty. "You were a worker of spirit magic," said Abian. "He is," said Decius. The hunter knew something of the void, and held it to be dangerous and a threat, but also a potential ally, like the large wolves that some of the northern tribes had formed alliances with. Senka stood, turning to the others. Voidira Alzar stepped forward, black robes trailing behind his black armor like oil on water. "It denies me," Senka said. "There's no impression, no origin. I cannot even say if it is stone or something else entire." He offered it to Alzar. Alzar took the shard in silence. For a few moments he stared at it from behind his red eye lenses. Then he placed it in the containment orb, scrawled with ancient warding symbols. His helm turned slightly to the boy, Lamaki, who stood behind the hunter, eyes wide and rimmed with dust. "Tell me, child," Alzar said, "what did you see inside the hut?" Alzar's voice was unnaturally deep, even for a space marine, and made more terrifying by the static of his voxmeter. Lamaki hesitated. Then, in a voice scarcely louder than the breeze, he spoke. "He made them sit, like they were eating. He cleaned them, I think. But they were dead. He posed them. One still had a cup in her hand." He began to cry and wiped his nose. Abian knelt next to him and whispered something that seemed to comfort the boy. "He said they were safe now, that they were safe from the gallery." "What does that mean?" Abian said. "Let the boy speak," said Alzar. "I cannot remember. He said I had promised they would not join the pillar. He said it was a pillar of flesh. He said something was singing, but only he could hear them. I don't know. I cannot remember." "He was not speaking to you. Keep going," said the black marine in his black cloak. "He said he could see people in pain twisted around the pillar. He said something, their bodies were bound to it, and his family was there." The space marine nodded. He said I would see it too, that we would all see it. Then the boy was overcome, and he pressed his face into his father's leg. That's enough, said Abian with finality. Decius and Alzar exchanged a look. Decius removed his helm so to be less imposing to the hunter, but he spoke to Koja. Your people are brave indeed, and proud. The hunter seemed to relax. Koja removed his helm in kind and nodded to Decius. What do you make of this, brother Voidira? This talk of a gallery, Koja said. Alzar's voice dropped to a grim murmur. This man was preparing something. What? A shrine, perhaps. But what is the gallery? The Screaming Gallery, said the Spirit Walker. I thought the same, said the Voidira. What is that? I have no recollection of a Screaming Gallery in the knowledge implanted by Call, said Decius. The Screaming Gallery was Conrad Kerr's masterpiece of horror, a shrine not to the Emperor and not to chaos, but to fear itself, said Voidira Alzar. Kerr's? What does that long-dead, long-damned traitor have to do with this? Said Decius. It is more likely his fatherless sons seeking to mete out some cruelty, said Alzar. But what is it, this gallery? Said Decius impatiently. He had little patience for the esoteric. He wanted practicals. The chamber was immense and circular in the descriptions I have read. The walls were lined with skinned faces of the condemned, each one frozen in the moment of their final agony, said Alzar. Thousands of them, men, women, children, pinned like trophies, their mouths agape in eternal screams. No two expressions were the same. Kurz had curated them obsessively, discarding those that did not meet his morbid standard of the purity of terror. The Voidira continued. The tale was well placed in the blackened forest. At the centre of the gallery rose the Pillar of Woe, a towering column of fused flesh and bone, stitched together from victims of all stations. Some were impaled, others merged with grotesque cybernetic scaffolding, their nerves kept alive just enough to continue their suffering. You know a great deal of the gallery, Voidira, said the Spirit Walker. Alzar just nodded. It is said the pillar pulsed faintly, as if it breathed. Here and there lips twitched, eyes rolled, and mouths opened and closed. It is said the chamber still rang with screams, and that the cursed Primarch spent hours walking its circumference, listening. The Voidira went on. For Kurz, the Screaming Gallery was more than some sick form of art. It was a monument to a universe ruled by terror, a reflection of his own prophecy, or more likely, a reflection of his own descent into madness. To what purpose? Said Koja. Some say he believed the pillar would become a conduit for the voices of the dead, that it would reveal to him the true shape of fate. Others say he simply needed a place where fear was immortal, or that he sought to create a god of fear, or perhaps even ascend, as his brothers had, to demonhood, as the master of fear. Others say he sought to punish his brothers by collecting their subjects, and adding them to sections of the terrible edifice. Whatever its purpose, none who saw it remained sane. Alzar paused. But really, what purpose does a madman need? Koja looked at the orb still clasped in the Voidira's hand. And what is that? The Voidira did not answer for a moment. You believe it is a fragment of the pillar, said Senka. They all looked at him. They say the pillar was made of obsidian, others say it was blackstone below all the bodies. You believe it has been broken to pieces and spread by the sons of the most cursed sun. Alzar nodded. After Kurz's death, some whispered that fragments of the gallery, shards of relics of the pillar, were taken by the sons, the Night Lords, as sacred tokens. He placed the orb containing the shard into a pouch inside his black robes. If that shard was only a whisper of the gallery, said Koja, then the voices behind it still speak. Have we found the first piece of what the Night Lords left behind? Asked Decius. A week had passed since the Night Lord's fleet vanished into the void, and though the scars of war still lingered across the plains and strongholds of Elysium IX, a tentative peace had taken root. The people had emerged from their mountain shelters and cave sanctuaries, lighting ceremonial fires under the open sky, which they kept blazing strongly every night, fires to keep the nightmares at bay. The celestial lions walked amongst them where they could, as both protector and kin, golden armor gleaming. The Matadors patient stood apart, always watchful, ever silent, their black warplate like shadows against the savanna dusk. Eyes still watched the stars. The Matadors' fleet had pursued the pure to the edge of the veil, and what was left of the star scorpions had disintegrated into scattered warbands. It was no good pursuing them further, and the ships were on their return. Something arrived before they did. From the horizon of space, a colossus breached the heavens, a ship larger than any vessel yet seen in the campaign. It wore the unmistakable cruciform silhouette of the Adeptus Mechanicus, crawling with antennae, domed sensor arrays, and immense plasma pylons. It bore no name upon its hull, only the sigil of Mars and the symbol of the cult Mechanicus etched deep into the adamantium crests. A single shuttle descended, its hull shaped like a tier of steel. It made no announcement of its intentions or crew, and landed in the inner courtyard of the Lion's Gate, with hissing hydraulics and electro prayers blaring from external speakers. It was a presumptuous action, smacking of entitlement. Calbron, Decius, and the Voice of the Pride watched its descent from below. You should have told the gunners to shoot it down, or at least put a few holes in it. The arrogant bastards would deserve it, said Calbron. We have made enemies of the Inquisition in the past. We cannot afford to make enemies of the Mechanicum, said Koja. From its ramp emerged a towering figure of brass articulators and human limbs, draped in crimson robes laced with cables, mechadendrites, and data tethers. And who might this arrogant bastard be, said Decius. Some part of his amygdala twitched, as if he recognized the strange half-human creature from the long sleep of pain which all Primaris had experienced. Behind the creature marched a dozen Scitari and 3 cloaked magi. The Magos walked as though the Lion's Keep were his own. Notify Malric, Decius muttered to Calbron. The man nodded and departed. Decius followed Brother M'Baku to greet the newcomers. The same war tables flickered back to life, but the mood was different now, less urgent, more suspicious. Malric Draven, the Black Anvil, stood tall and fully armoured. Beside him were Decius Thorn, Calbron Vortek, and Captain Veyron Doll, all stone-faced. Across from them sat Koja M'Baku, flanked once more by Isao Jengo and Leona Katemwe. The Celestial Lions watched in quiet reserve. Allow me to introduce myself properly to all of you, the Magos said. I am Magos Erath Voxis Aneth, Master of Data Sanctification and Xenoarchaeology Encryption. I seek knowledge, not for the glory of the Omnissiah alone, but to ensure mankind survives what I call the third spiral of decay. Voxis Aleph's face was so heavily augmented it resembled more machine than man. He loomed over the table, his mechanical frame too large for any seat, tendrils resting idly on the surface as his digitized voice echoed through the chamber. Ah, such ruin, such resilience, the paradox of man laid bare. I had only just concluded a vector recalibration in the Baston Reach when I happened upon your battle records. I had to see it with my own optics. Malric's voice was iron. Why did you come, Magos? Voxis Aleph's voice buzzed with layered tones, like multiple speakers working out of sync. It might have been the mechanical equivalent of a It was not by chance, said Malric. Voxis Aleph looked at the chapter master, and if anything could be read from his one remaining human eye, it was great interest. Chance is a primitive term, a relic of probability misunderstood. I prefer to think of that as a curated curiosity. Malric did not smile. This world is no forge. If you seek an STC cache, I cannot think of a less likely planet where one might recover one, and I suspect you didn't come merely to hear of our troubles. Voxis Aleph turned slightly, one of his mechadendrites delicately lifting a cracked helmet from a display of salvaged Night Lord's equipment. Troubles? No. I did come to observe success. The Celestial Lions are storied, durable, misunderstood. And the Matadors? He turned, multiple ocular sensors focusing on Decius, then Calbron. They are young, new, one of the Master's favourite projects. Malric's brow furrowed. So this is not a courtesy visit. You're here to examine Cole's work. Voxis Aleph seemed pleased. Of course. The field is the final crucible of design. Tell me, have your brothers shown any inconsistencies, behavioural anomalies, rage, decay, variations in spiritual cohesion, unusual sensitivity, or perhaps resilience to the warp? Decius's lip curled. We are not experiments. Voxis Aleph tilted his head. You are warriors, designed for an Imperium in crisis, but you are meant to be more. If there are flaws, I must know of them. Voxis Aleph received no response, and abruptly he changed tack, his many legs carrying him to the other side of the table, which was strewn with more Night Lord's paraphernalia. I understand the Night Lords left quite unexpectedly, and without cause, Voxis Aleph said. That interests me as well. You suspect they will return? Said Calbron. Voxis Aleph just shrugged, as if the prospect didn't matter all that much. Or that they have left something here, said Decius slowly. Ah, interesting. A thinker, said Voxis Aleph, turning to Decius. He leant in to inspect the Marine's facial features. Primaris subject 198193, I remember. I was one of the few magi allowed to work on your chapter's ascension. Don't look so worried. I remember all my charges. I wasn't worried, said Decius. You are all sons to me, you know, and to my master, the great Archmagos Belisarius Cole, said Voxis Aleph. All like sons, and it is wonderful to see you have turned out to be an intelligent Marine.
and to have reached the rank of captain. That is very impressive indeed."
"So you do think the Night Lords have left something behind," said Decius.
"And not one to be distracted either. Wonderful. I don't know, but I have some suspicions. Tell me."
1098193? Captain Decius interrupted, uncomfortable with the number. It nudged something in his hind brain, making him think of tanks full of freezing liquid.
"Decius, yes. Well, tell me, have you noted any manifestations of a gene seed flaw? I see your eyes are unusual, an enlarged pupil. Interesting. Your average height and weight are exactly within the standard bands of the Primaris. Is there anything else?"
Decius's face was stone. The Magos paused, looking at Malric, and then without warning he rose up on his many articulated limbs and turned to the door.
"You are all no fun. I should think the Matadors patient would be excited to meet one of their creators, but no."
He walked away now.
"I will linger a few days. My retinue will remain outside your sanctum. I will not interfere. But should you want to share any insights with one of the most gifted minds of the Imperium, I am only a vox call away."
Voxus Aleph's Skitarii fell in behind him. A heavy silence returned. Decius glanced at Malric. "What did you make of that?" Malric's gaze was unreadable. "I believe he is not finished with us, and we should watch closely for more reports of these shards on Elysium IX. Thank you for listening.